fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons. Like diamonds, we are back again. Got my brother Luke. What's up, dude?
Not much. Ready to talk about a cool study that just came out.
It didn't just come out. It just came to light. This was done a few years back, but one of our members, well, I believe it was Captain Tom, right? Yep. Send it over. We get all kinds of cool stuff from our members. So thank you guys. Keep that coming. We love science-based things like this. We love seeing new data. We love seeing new experiments. And this was an experiment on largemouth bass in particular, and scent. And if you followed some of our podcasts before, one of our most downloaded podcasts ever, Luke, was the one we did about scent. And it was all based on the book Scientific Angler by Paul Johnson, talking about those negative scent tracks, like literally things that might be on your fingers, like different types of aromas and chemicals and cigarettes. All of that stuff, gasoline, if you're pumping gas and then tying your knots, you're literally like killing your chances of catching fish. So we love talking about this stuff, especially if it's backed by real science and real data. So this one is, so I'll preface it with this one is, and the goal, Luke, right, it was trying to see, there's really three different things that would bring a bass. If you caught a bass and dropped it off 200 yards from its bed, there's only three real things that would get that bass back there. The same, way a dog would find its home if it was dropped miles away. So they would catch these bass, and they were trying to discover which one of the three really meant or made the biggest difference to get that bass back home. And what were they?
Yeah. So number one was scent. So their sense of smell. Sight was another one they tested, where their sense of sight, what were their eyes, what led them back to where they were going. In this case, these were all bass that were bedding, and so they would track exactly. Obviously, they knew where it was, and they released every single one exactly. I believe it was 200 yards away, and it was a certain direction in the river. So they basically took as many of the variables out. And number three was the geospatial, whatever the correct term is, where the Earth's what's the term they use?
I mean, it's just the Earth's magnetic field. I don't know that we have to talk. That's like we're that smart on this podcast.
Yeah, we're not going to try to fool you that we're super smart.
Yeah, geo is geomagnetic. I mean, they basically put a strip, like a magnet strip, that was powerful enough to basically knock the geomagnetic force field away from that fish, where it couldn't use its normal senses in that particular sense to get back to its home, to its bed.
Yeah, and so what they did, just so you know, because when I first saw, I was seeing this, and I was like, man, I can't believe they literally would blind these fish, and that they would like pull out the sense of smell. Like, that's kind of like, hopefully Pete doesn't see it. And turns out that all they did was they just temporarily deadened those senses. So for the geospatial, whatever that term is, they literally would put a magnet right on the head of the fish, and they did it in a way that it would come off in like 4 or 5 days. And so for the sight, they basically put it was like Vaseline or something like that would coat the eyes for, again, about 4 to 5-ish days. And then for the smell, same thing. They put Vaseline or some sort of non-toxic stuff like in their nostrils, so that they couldn't smell them. And so they track all these bass. I think it was like a 10 per each category, and it was shocking. Like, there's a noticeable difference on their ability to find their way back 200 yards from one of those three. Like, all of them were different, and one that you probably can guess was by far the one that they had the hardest time finding the way back with.
Yeah, so here are the numbers. So for the vision impaired, and what they actually did was put it's Fixodent. I believe it's like for dentures, Fixodent, something like that. They would cover their eyes, as Luke said, with Vaseline and this Fixodent strips. They couldn't see anything. 64% of the fish found their way back home within an hour, and 91% returned in 4 hours. So 64 and 91. And that means the higher the number means that wasn't the thing that was causing them that wasn't their number one way to find their way back. Now when they put the magnetic strip on there, 73% made it back in an hour, and 100% of them made it back in the 4 hours, even though that magnet was still stuck on their nose. They confirmed. Scuba divers are down there, snorkelers, watching all of this and documenting all of it. With the scent, 27%, or should I say only 27% made it back in an hour, and 63% made it back to the nest in the 4 hours, which is the lowest one by far, meaning they were absolutely confused, even though they could see. This is the bass that completely see perfect and that's not correct.
Yeah,
they could see perfect, and they did not have a magnet on their nose, but they had Vaseline and some strip shoved up their nostril, and that was it. And for science, if you guys have ever been part of a real science experiment, I mean, they have to have a lot of evidence to be able to say, yes, this occurred. It can't just be close. And they said it was significant evidence that it was the scent. It was not vision. It was not the geomagnetic. It was all vision. I thought it was really fascinating.
Yeah, and they have a chart too that measured. You can see the lines, and it's the low line. It was just clearly different than the others. Was the scent, and I obviously knew that fish use scent for feeding. What I didn't realize is that they would use the smell of the water to basically go from one spot to the other to find their way back. And the fact that again, it was, I can't remember, it was 200 feet or 200 yards, but either way, it's just
200 meters.
Meters, yeah. I should have known for the science stuff. Use the meters, but it's to me, it's amazing how good that sense is, where you can blind the fish altogether, and within an hour, 64% find their way back in 1 hour. That's pretty. 200 meters blind in an hour, getting back to the exact same spot is incredibly impressive.
It's nuts. So just the power of their scent. I mean, fish can smell better underwater than we can, in the air. And think about the things that we can smell as humans, right? If we're outside, and we have a whiff of barbecue or bacon being cooked or something like that, or even just fire. I mean, you could smell some of this stuff for so far away, and fish can smell even better than us underwater. Really, really fascinating. Now, the next thing that came up, though, that I thought was interesting in this video, and we'll put a link to it as well, was talking about the importance of not just the smell but the taste. What do you think about that, Luke?
Again, it just makes sense as well. And for those of us who've had strikes, and then by the time we set the hook, there's nothing there. It was pretty cool. They have footage of bass eating little tablets, and so they would obviously put different scents and taste buds, or I guess different things that fish could taste differently. Some good, some not good, and you can see the bass suck it in and then immediately just kick it back out. So you feel the thump. And then within like a fraction of a second, they spit it right out. And so in that instance, it's pretty clear that obviously in that footage, it was clear they just didn't like the taste of it. And so I'm sure that's happening with our lures, where we could have been filling up the gas tank on the way to a trip and get gasoline on our hands, and then that ends up on our lures. And that's just flat out, based on the scientific angler, that's one of the worst scents you can have, either on your hands or your line or your lures. So it was just cool to see. I guess cool to have a reminder with just visual footage of how important it is for us to make sure that we not only don't have negative scents on our stuff, but we do all we can to have some positive scents as well.
Yep, and I'll put a link to that. And to me, as I'm watching that, I was like, heck, I'm going to put, like, for us in the saltwater part, Dr. Juice, the saltwater slam on everything, right? And we'll talk about, they even did a study on hard baits, on the importance of doing it even on hard baits. So think about that, right? All it takes is one little thing. It could have been sunscreen. I mean, that happens to a lot of us right here, especially in Florida. putting sunscreen on our face and it's still on our fingers. We don't get it all off. And all of a sudden we're tying knots or rigging up our lures. And all it takes is for that trout or that snook or redfish or whatever it be, or bass, whatever you're fishing for, to see the reaction, because we still know that it's not just scent, right? Let's be honest. I mean, there's reaction strikes that happen every day. I mean, it's a massive reason that, you know, we use certain paddle tails and things that are darting. I mean, the reaction strikes are proven to work. But if it hits it real quick and you don't have that hook set and it just tastes odd, just like a human would do, if something looked good and it kind of smelt good and at first, and you put it in your mouth and you're like, oh, this tastes horrible, you're going to spit it out just like a fish does. And so to me, I was like, man, I'm going to be putting this scent on everything. And I do think it's the importance of what Dr. Juice and I mean, Berkeley, all these companies, Procure, all the companies that sell scent do this. They have particular scent for particular species based on, you know, one, scent, and then two, on taste. I have caught bass, you know, in our lake using Dr. Juice Slam, and that could have been just a reaction strike. Who knows? But the more I thought about it, I was like, man, I do want to match my scent to what I'm targeting, even more so now.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I still go back and forth with using scent and not using scent, and I, you know, not having a specific scent definitely can still work. I still think the number one thing is the motion of the lure or bait, is to actually have a good looking motion that can generate a strike. But just to increase the odds, I mean, obviously that hard bait experiment where they would actually watch fish react to this lure and they would put scent on it and then not have scent on it. You have one scent and one non-scent, and it was 2x, 2 times more strikes on the scented one versus the non-scented one. So, and
repeat that was on a hard bait. So imagine like our Moonwalker or the new lure that Luke's been prototyping. I think they had, was it a sink bait? Yeah,
it was a twitch bait. It was a hard plastic bait that kind of dove down, and it was a little diver, had a little lip on it. But yeah, so they would work it the same way, and the scented version had 2 times as many strikes as the non-scented. So no, you do not have to have scent on your lures, and we've clearly seen that firsthand, where we still catch a good amount of fish without scent. But that was really the first like hardcore study of a specific type of lure that I happen to really like, on seeing a scented versus non-scented. I've tried to do some informed one. It's really tough to do, but I mean, after seeing that, like, why not, right? Like, it takes like literally a 1 or 2 seconds to get a little scent on the lure. So now I'm going to be more diligent on scenting, and I've been doing it like once per trip, which is usually like 3 hours. I rarely have time for a full day of fishing, but I'll usually apply it on the day, like the first cast, but right before the first cast, and just let it ride the rest of the day. After seeing that study, I'm definitely going to start reapplying like every hour or so, just to make sure that I'm maximizing my odds. Because I mean, 2 times the strikes is a big deal. That's an extremely big deal.
And I'm pretty sure that was a Berkeley study. I'll go back and watch the video, and we'll put a link to it. But that was a legit study by a pretty big brand, and they obviously documented all that stuff with their scientists. So yeah, it was fascinating. The last part was they kind of threw in, hey, there's certain scents that are, better than others. And it was talking about water-based versus oil. They didn't talk about like Dr. Juice, which is really kind of a combination of two. Because when Dr. Juice came out in the beginning, it was one of the two, right? It was either water-based. And so if you don't know what that means, water-based, that goes away real quickly, right? I mean, it's like a Procure, I believe, is all water-based, right? Where,
it dissolves.
It dissolves. It's gone. It's 60 seconds type of video. I mean, you can't see it on your lure. It's literally gone. You don't even smell it anymore. Whereas oil, there's a pro. It's going to stick and it's going to be around forever. Bad news is, it doesn't work well with water, right? Oil and water don't really react well together, and so it's not going to have the same impact. So Dr. Juice came out and did this, special. It is their secret recipe of kind of a blend where it is still kind of water-based, but it also has the oil to make it stick longer, which is what we tell people. You can't see it on there like you can like Procure, but Procure's gone super quick. And I always tell people, hey, smell it. Do you still smell it? And they're like, yeah, I still smell it. Well, that means it's working, right? Fish can smell who knows how many times better than humans. I know we did a podcast on that. I don't want to have someone say I was wrong, but it was thousands of times better than humans. So if you can still smell the scent, whether it's Dr. Juice or anything on that lure, regardless if you can see it or not, it is still working for you, and it will certainly work underwater.
Yeah, no, again, it was really cool. For many years, I really didn't think scent was that big of a deal. And then that scientific angler really opened my eyes, in particular, just the negative scents where, gassing up. I always knew that, at least I assumed that gas would be bad, but that was one of the noticeably bad ones. Tobacco's bad as well. And so once I saw that, now I no longer ever store even my rods and reels in the garage, like where there's some gas cans for like weed eaters and stuff, because even just the gas in the air can end up attaching to a line, and now you have one of those negative scent tracks. So so whether you believe in scents being good or not, at a minimum, I would recommend using them just to at least mask any negative scents that we might have accidentally put or allowed to get on our gear. And as that one part of the last part of the study was about the 2-time strikes with the lure, I mean, that's pretty obvious that we need to be using scents. And whether you use Dr. Juice or whatever, I would highly recommend just to get one that you're comfortable with and that you like, and just keep using. I've seen the best results with Dr. Juice so far. I've done some tests with like Proker and a couple others. It just seems to last longer, and the fish absolutely respond to it. I would say that the Gulp Juice, whatever they use in theirs, is phenomenal as well. Like theirs is purely water based,
yeah.
Where if you leave the con is if you leave that lure out, right? If you just leave it on the hook for even while changing spots or for like an hour or so plus, it's going to start shrinking and eventually harden up to where you can't really even use it. So there's pros and cons to all of them. Just pick one that works, pick one that you trust, and I think the fish catching consistency will go up.
And the Gulp Juice doesn't work with anything else. That's the other bad news. Where Dr. Juice, you can put on anything. You can literally put it on any lure, hard, soft, doesn't matter. It will stick to it and adhere to it and work. Whereas the Gulp Juice, it's only good for gulp, right? Because people ask, well, hey, I'm going to dip it in gulp. Cool. It lasts about however long it takes for that cast to hit the water. It's already all gone. By the time it hits the water, it's gone. I mean, they've obviously have some proprietary soft plastics that will absorb and make that last longer. That is kind of their secret sauce, if you will. But yeah, certainly get some of the Dr. Juice scent. I've tried out. Tell us what you think. Go over to fishstrong.com. Of course, members save 20% off. The other good news is in that fish track scent test, Luke, if you recall, urine was not good or bad. It was right in the middle. So men, you continue to not have to wash your hands after going to the restroom. That's what I always tell my wife. Hey, it's not hurting the fishing. She doesn't think that's funny. But all the other stuff, from pumping gas to even just leaving your rods and reels in a shed where you might keep some paints or gasoline or anything that might have a little bit of fumes. I mean, all that stuff could absorb. I remember we have a little guest area where I kept a bunch of my rods and a bunch of my line, and it was going to get repainted. And I was like, I'm getting that stuff out of there. I didn't even want it to be around like a day of painting in there. Maybe I'm a little bit, too crazy and superstitious on it, but man, that study doesn't lie. I mean, they proved here's the negative ones, here's the positive ones, and then here's the ones that don't really matter, like urine and alcohol was another one that did not.
Yeah, and even just our natural, like just humans' natural oil that we basically give off is bad. So even just tying knots it essentially has a negative scent trail. So now when I am applying scent, I use the Dr. Juice, and I actually prefer the little small bottle. I don't have one here next to me, but it has a little dropper, and I literally just use like 2 drops, and then I spread it with my fingers just to make sure it covers the lure, and I do it while it's dry. That way it'll last for a really long time. And then I actually go over with my fingers the knots. So I do the loop knot to the lure, and then I do my line to my braid to leader line as well, just to make sure that I just don't have the negative scent trailing right behind the lure. So I mean, I truly do feel like I've been seeing more fish caught per trip after starting to do that. It's hard to quantify the exact amount. I can't say it's been 2 times, but I at least do feel that I'm getting more action.
Well, and you got that pretty crazy footage from that dock there.
Yeah.
At nighttime where tell that story. That was nuts.
Yeah, I mean that was really the first like wow moment that I had with scent because it's hard to really say like, oh, I caught this fish on this lure that had scent on it, like how much of a variable the scent played in it, working or not. So it was when we just got the power prawn, the Brazilian power prawns, was like a year and a half ago, and this was when we just started working with Dr. Juice, where they were gonna make a prototype scent, and we were kind of like, all right, cool, like if it works, we'll do it. If not, like thanks, we'll part ways friends. And so I was making this video. I was down at Lugos Barilla, and I was on a snook light at night on a dock with light shining down. There's a bunch of snook, and they're all feeding on shrimp. And so I was just like, wow, like this is perfect. I could do a quick video of our new lure. And it was just me. So I had the phone in one hand, and I was just cane pulling the shrimp right below, just swimming it right in front of these fish. And so I drop it down with the phone going, like so pumped. I'm going to catch a giant fish on one take. It's going to be great. And so I go down there, and as soon as the shrimp hits the water and I start gliding it through, a snook, as two snook and a redfish come right up to it. And I actually did a video, and you can see this all happening. They come right up to it, nose up like an inch behind it, and then bolt. They literally, it was just like the study talks about. Yep. They're just about to strike, smell something bad clearly, and they were gone. And so I was just like devastated. I was like embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, like does our new lure like not work very well? Like we were actually already starting to produce them. I was like, man, I've been doing good so far, but like why it should be working under the lights. And then I remember, okay, I had that scent, so I was like, I might as well put some on here and see if that does any different. And so I just put some Dr. Juice on. This was literally like a minute later, right? So it wasn't like a different tide cycle or anything. This was all the same stuff. So quickly put some scent on there and then redid it. And same thing, right? As soon as the shrimp hits the water and I start gliding it, some fish come right up to it. But in this case, they go up and smack it. So it was 9-day difference. And so then I caught a snook, I let it go, and this was after the commotion. So the snook was fighting under the light. And then I was like, I might as well try it again. And so I do the same thing, drop it down, swim it, another snook hits it. And again, it was like, and they all came from following it, right? So they definitely came from the scented part where the scent is trailing behind it. They all followed that scent and smacked it from behind. And then the third one happened is I got another one, ended up, unfortunately, it broke me off because I was so pumped up that I forgot to retie the line. But it was the most night and day difference I've ever seen, where I literally watched 3 fish deny the lure, right? And then about a minute later, put the same lure with the same motion in the same spot, and the fish are automatically hitting it. So that was, to me, that was the biggest aha moment for like, I need to take scent more seriously.
It's pretty cool. All right, guys. Well, hopefully you take scent seriously as well. Go pick up some of your Dr. Juice or whatever the heck you happen to use for scent, but use something, even if it's not the ones that we recommend, that we personally have tested out ourselves. And if you haven't joined us in Insider Club, what the heck you waiting on? We just recently celebrated 35,000 members and got a lot of new tackle coming here for the spring and into the summer. Finally, that slot machine rod will be for sale. We've got a couple hundred of our founder members who have now should all be receiving theirs. If not, we got like one little batch left, and then we'll have the some remainder for sale in the shop. We're going to give $100 off. I mean, literally enough to pay for the cost of the Insider membership just on the rod alone. So we want to make it so obvious that this is a really good investment to help you save time and save money and get cool tips and tricks like this. This is the free stuff that we get. This is our free freemium stuff. We save the very, very best for our members, including our whole smart fishing spot system. We actually have our smart fishing spots app, and we have the smart fishing spots game plan, or smart fishing game plan, where Luke and the other coaches and our full-time guides are getting on, satellite maps and saying, hey, here's the type of areas you want to fish this weekend. We do it every single week. Super, super helpful. So it's like a hybrid of artificial intelligence. It's a cool taggy keyword right now, real cheeky, and then human intelligence. I mean, to me, I think that's best of both worlds. So yep. Come join us over at saltstrong.com. Otherwise, Luke, anything else for the good of the order here?
That's it. Yeah, just highly recommend just taking the scent part seriously. It has been definitely a noticeable deal. I would say more so than even like lure color, just to have a good scent on there before you even worry about lure color.
Wow, that's big. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.
See ya.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.